Hello everyone, I appreciate you coming back for another episode of Budget Lawns. This time we're on the road, but not to worry. It wouldn't be a Budget Lawns episode if I wasn't rocking away in a rocking chair. Today I'm going to give you a few simple tips on how to choose the right warm season turf for your lawn. So stick around. Hello my friends, thank you very much for being here for another episode of Budget Lawns. I sure do appreciate you. If you're subscribed already, thank you so much. If you're not, hey, think about hitting that subscription button along with that thumbs up, the notification bell, and leave me a comment below so I get an idea on what you like about Budget Lawns. And hey, even if you don't like something, you can leave me a comment about that as well. Always looking to improve and bring you the content that you're looking for. And today that content is about choosing a warm season turf. Recently, I don't know when I'll be posting this, but I'll be back home in Arkansas when I do. Recently, I made a trip with my wife and kids down to the in-laws' house. It had been some time since they had seen the grandkids because of this whole COVID-19 thing, but we've been quarantining, they've been quarantining, and we figured it was time for them to see their grandkids again because it had been since Thanksgiving. So we're down in the north part of Texas, and unlike the area of Arkansas that I'm in, folks down here have mainly Bermuda or St. Augustine grass. So I see online a lot of times people saying, what warm season grass should I get for my lawn? I'm in this location or that location. So I thought, you know what? Sometimes you can overcomplicate the decision between which one to get when really there are some simple deciding factors that will tell you whether or not you should have Bermudagrass or you should have St. Augustine. Now my in-laws have both in their lawn. So I'm going to give you reasons why they have St. Augustine in some parts and Bermuda in others. And as we go through this, keep in mind that lawn care for some folks is not like what a lot of us enthusiasts want it to be. You know, some folks just want to have a nice lawn that's not the worst one in the neighborhood. They don't have the time, they don't want to put in the effort to have the best looking lawn on the block, and that's okay. And you don't have to be the best. Most people just don't want to be the worst. They kind of just want to blend in right in the middle. So you don't have to feel like you have to be going above and beyond, but what you do have to do is make sure you pick the right turf for your weather, for your area, for your conditions. And today, I'm going to give you an idea on whether or not, if you're looking for a warm season turf, you should have St. Augustine or you should have Bermuda. Now, there's a big difference visually there. I mean, aside from the obvious things, you know, we're going to talk about the similarities and the differences between the two. But just getting started, you can see St. Augustine, a very broad leaf blade compared to Bermuda. This one, a hybrid Bermuda. Very thin. But both are similar in several ways, but it's the differences that will tell you whether or not you need St. Augustine or whether or not you need Bermudagrass. So first let's talk about the similarities. These are both warm season turfs. So if you're in an area that stays cool to cold most of the year around and has pretty mild summers, don't even think about these two. These are warm season grasses, particularly found some in the transition zones for the Bermuda, but St. Augustine usually found much further south, below the transition zones and into the warm, more tropical climates. But both of these turfs are very drought tolerant. They don't need a lot of water to stay green and survive. So as long as you're watering them properly, typically around 1 inch a week, these two turf types will do very, very well. They both grow very similarly. If you recall from the last video about overseeding a Bermuda grass lawn, I talked about how Bermuda grows by runners or stolons. St. Augustine also has runners as well, so they spread very, very quickly. So if you're looking to fill in your lawn in a short period of time, both of these will help you do that. I think that Bermuda grows a little bit quicker than St. Augustine does, but both grow by runners. Now, the St. Augustine does not develop the rhizomes like the Bermuda does, but nonetheless, both grow by runners and spread very quickly, and they're both relatively low maintenance. Not a lot goes into these. That's why they're pretty desirable turf types for folks. However, Bermudagrass is a little bit more tolerant to heavy foot traffic where Bermudagrass is not. So that's kind of a difference between the two. So with that said, we'll kind of move into the main differences that will help you decide which one you need for your warm season lawn. And now we're not going to get into the specifics of like how much nitrogen, how much fertilizer, how much, all the care specifics of these two turf types, because those really don't matter in deciding which one you need. There are some very identifiable characteristics of the two that will tell you which one you need, and you don't really have much of a say-so about it. Like the one I've already given, the Bermuda is much more tolerant to heavy foot traffic, so if you know you're going to have dogs in your lawn or a lot of foot traffic through them, Bermuda is your best option there over St. Augustine. But when we go over these other differences, you'll see, even if that's the case, you might not be able to get the Bermuda at all because of these other factors. And the first major factor is Bermuda does not like shade. If you have a shady lawn, a lot of trees, you can pretty much rule out Bermuda from the beginning. Where St. Augustine, now it doesn't want full shade, so when I say shade, it doesn't mean full shade. It does like a little bit of sunlight, but it is much more tolerant to shady areas than Bermuda is. So right there alone, that being a key factor, shade, no Bermuda. A little bit of shade, St. Augustine, okay. And that right there will get you started in the right direction. Another major factor, and this is why you see St. Augustine much further south, is cold tolerance. Both of these will go dormant in cold weather, but Bermuda in the dormant state is much more tolerant to less, problems or harm to the grass as it comes out of dormancy than St. Augustine is. I live in Arkansas where we can get some pretty cold winters. I'll get a little winter kill sometimes, maybe some spring dead spot, but other than that, really not much of an issue as far as damage goes to the Bermuda. But St. Augustine grass, if you get periods of cold weather for as much as a few hours around 10 degrees, you can see pretty significant damage to the turf after the winter. So that's why you don't see St. Augustine grass that far north. Now, I'm in the northern part of Arkansas. In Arkansas, you really won't see St. Augustine grass much further north than the southern third of the state. So if you live in a cold area and a warm area as well, and you're looking for warm season turf, if you have really cold stretches or snaps throughout the wintertime, St. Augustine probably not a good option for you because it's not as tolerant to the really cold temperatures as Bermuda is. So you'll see it in more tropical areas, Florida, Texas, places like that. I know there are a lot of good St. Augustine channels out there, so you've got some resources, very good resources to check on those. And of course, Budget Lawns is here for you for all your Bermuda needs. And now this one, say you check the boxes for no shade, you don't have a lot of shade, and you don't live in a very cold area in the wintertime, you could go either St. Augustine or Bermuda. So this last determining factor kind of gives you more of a choice here. You don't have a lot of shade, you don't live in too cold of an area in the wintertime, and you can pick between Bermuda or St. Augustine. Bermuda likes to be cut low, St. Augustine likes to be cut high. Bermuda around 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches, depending on your variety. St. Augustine 3 to 4 inches. So you need to decide, do you want to cut low or do you want to cut high? If you cut low, you have to cut more often. If you cut high, you don't have to cut as often. So depending on how your box is checked for the first two, you can kind of make a decision on which one you want based on how high you want to cut the lawn. And I know just from speaking to my in-laws, it gets kind of tricky because they've got St. Augustine in some parts and Bermuda in others. And, you know, it's tough to mow one area low and then one area high because you're having to change the height on your mower. So they've just kind of found a sweet spot in between. It brings the Bermuda up a little bit, which it doesn't necessarily like as much. But they found that works for them. They're those kind of folks that just, you know, want to maintain their lawn. They love having garden plants and vegetables out back that they can make smoothies out of. They're not as concerned as being the primo cream of the crop lawn in the neighborhood. They just don't want to be the worst. And again, that's perfectly okay. One last difference I don't have on the graphic for you is that St. Augustine is pretty susceptible to disease compared to Bermuda. I get disease from time to time on my Bermuda lawn, but it grows so fast that I can just mow it out real quickly, mow often, mow it out, eliminate the environmental conditions, usually wet conditions, assuming it's not raining, to get rid of that disease a lot easier and quicker, where St. Augustine grass is pretty susceptible to disease. So you want to be aware of that as well when making your decision. But just off of this simple list of similarities and differences, you should have a pretty good idea when trying to decide what seed or sod you want to put down for a warm season lawn, which one best suits your conditions, your location, your environment, all these things we've talked about that will tell you whether or not you should have Bermuda or St. Augustine. All right, folks, that's gonna pretty much wrap up everything I've got for you on this edition of Budget Lawns. On the next one, which I'll be back in Arkansas, after a short stay away from home. If you've been away with a Bermuda lawn, you know that there's some things you got to do to kind of get it back to where it was before you left, because you probably didn't get to mow as often or water when you needed to. So I'll try to get some tips out to you on how to get your lawn back to the shape it was in before a vacation on the next episode of Budget Lawns. Until then, hope you're staying safe, hope you're staying healthy. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.